Welcome to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast, where we go behind the scenes and uncover the tactics and strategies top entrepreneurs are using to make more sales, dominate their markets, and how you can get those same results. Here's your host, Dave Woodward.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Funnel Hacker Radio. I'm super excited today. You have the opportunity of hearing from a good friend of mine, Dustin Mathews. So Dustin, welcome. We're excited to have you on the call.
I am super excited to be here.
This is a lot of fun for me. Dustin and I go way back. Dustin's the CEO of Speaking Empire, founder really of Speaking Empire, but more important than that, he's a great friend who's been around myself and Russell and our team for quite some time. We've done events together. They're a ClickFunnels user. Russell, we went down and spent a day with Dustin and his team down there in Florida. And honestly, it has just been such a great opportunity as far as working with you guys. I'm so excited to have you on the call, primarily because I know you're going to just provide a massive amount of content. It's focused not specifically just around speaking, but really around communicating with your audience on exactly how to create more sales. So Dustin, again, welcome. I'm glad to have you.
Absolutely, Dave. I got to say, first off, man, your energy is just off the charts. I love it. I mean, I got to imagine people just love it. They feed off of it. The energy is great. I'm feeding off of it. So that's amazing. And that's like kind of the thing that we'll talk about is, when you speak to folks, whether you're doing a podcast, whether you're speaking on stage or doing a webinar, you've got to bring that level of energy. You've got to get people excited at the end of the day, to, invest with you, to donate to your charity, but to do something, right? To get them into action. And really that's what I want to talk about today is how do we get folks into action no matter what?
Oh, I love that. And again, thank you for the compliment. It's one of those things it's always kind of fun, especially on a podcast where you don't really see the person, you're kind of going back and forth. But I think it's really the main reason why I wanted to have you on our podcast because, at times being the founder of Speaking Empire, I'm sure you kind of get pigeonholed into people thinking as far as, well, all they do is help people with professional stage presentation stuff. I'm like, you guys, that is such a small piece of it. Dustin, I think the thing you've done just an amazing job of is really helping people craft their message on how they communicate. And again, whether that's through their webinar, whether it's through a VSL, whether it's just the communication they have, or even the presence, because you guys are really big just on the presence and how you present yourself. And even though you might be hiding behind a monitor or a screen, there's still a presence and people have to connect with that. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just kind of dive right into it. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you this. I think of this for folks that don't consider themselves a speaker. Maybe you're the hardcore ClickFunnels user. You consider yourself an internet marketer, and you come from that walk of life, and you're like, speaking? Like, I'm not going to get on a stage. Well, I want you to consider, when you speak, everyone speaks, really. You speak to your wife, you speak to your kids, you got to influence them. Heck, you speak to affiliate partners. And really what this is about is how do you influence? And then when I say influence, I really mean influence for good. And I suspect, I'm a part of the ClickFunnels community. And so I know that most people in that community that come, they bring that value. They want to serve and they come from a place of that. And so when you have a good intention, it's like, how do you get people into action? And let's say you happen onto this podcast and you're not a marketer, right? You have a charity. Well, I want you to pay close attention too, because really at the end of the day, this is about influence and how do you get people into action. And so I would say, Dave, the biggest thing that we share at Speaking Empire is there's a formula, there's a choreographed way, a path, a funnel, if you want to call it that, because I know everyone loves the language. So think of it as a funnel for your presentation or your message. And so just like you build a funnel in ClickFunnels, the opt-in page, the next page offering a product for $7, offering an upsell and everything that we're taught by the community and by the team over at ClickFunnels, it's the same thing for a sales message. And so there's a formula, there's a funnel, if you want to call it that, for that. And so that's what we really share here at Speaking Empire.
I think that is so cool. We're always about, I love the fact that, bringing up the vocabulary and the culture and things, because that's one of the main things we're always trying to build. And I think part of that culture, we've talked so much about, funnel hacking and the whole idea as far as hacking off of finding other things that are successful. And it's really, Dustin, one of the things you guys have done an amazing job at is finding out those things that are really the key. It's amazing to me because I've spent time with you. I've heard you talk and coach others. It's little tiny tweaks and changes. Again, I kind of like to refer to them, I guess, to keep the lingo the same as far as little hacks that they can do to really craft their presentation that has just massive, massive impact on close rates. And not just on close rates, but more importantly, what you're referring to as far as just truly influence, to where if you have a message, the key is you want to influence people with that message. You've got to get it out. And that's, again, the main reason I wanted to have you on is let's kind of talk about what is that funnel or that formula that you guys have for creating that passionate presentation that really allows people to connect with you.
Absolutely. It's real easy. It's a 5-step formula, and that actually itself is part of the process. And I'll explain what that exactly means in just a moment. So there's 5 steps, and I want folks to write this down or at least type notes or just mentally take notice of this. So the first one is your intro. So when you open your talk, your presentation, or when you introduce yourself to somebody, you got to have a strong intro, a memorable one, and we'll talk more about that. The next one is your story. We know that stories sell and facts tell. So how do you motivate people with your story? The next is making an offer, the third part, offer. And what I mean by that is not necessarily making a sale, but show up with something that provides a solution. And it may be your 5-step formula like I'm sharing here. Then the next is your body. The body, this is where you tell stories. This is where you tell the science, statistics, testimonials, and you back up the offer that you have or your formula, your secret sauce, your science. And then finally, number 5, the 5th component is the close. And most people think when I say close, they're like, oh, going for the money. And it doesn't always have to mean that. It can mean opt into my page. It can be SMS and opt into the SMS. It can be give me money for my charity. And yes, it can be buy my product or service online or offline. And so those are the 5 core components. And Dave, I want to flip the script and I want to tell folks, start with number 5. Start with number 5. So let me ask you this, Dave. Think back to when you first, before you were hardcore into marketing and knowing what you know now, when you wrote a presentation or a PowerPoint, where did you often start?
Slide 1, trying to come up with a title and then my intro. That's where I always started.
That's where I started too. I mean, I think it's just natural, right? Start, right? And if you study copywriting and you get the funnel hacks, start with the headline. Well, if you have an intent, meaning if you want someone to opt in, you want someone to buy your product or donate money to your charity, whatever it is, my proposition to you is you start with the end in mind. What's the close? What's the offer, the irresistible offer you're going to make somebody? And so the reason why I say that is whenever you write something, whether it's an in-print sales letter, a presentation, a VSL, when you start a project like that, you've got all this energy in the beginning. You're so excited, right? And by the end, you've sort of lost that momentum. Even if it's over 6 months and you wake up every day like Dave does with newfound energy and passion, right, every day. But by the end, you're like, man, wow, this took 6 months. This took 6 months to do. And so I say this, the most important part of your presentation or your message is the close. And a lot of people really kind of go soft there. And so you want to have a powerful close. You want to make an offer. And again, you don't have to sell a product every time. You can make an offer to download something special. You can make an offer to, make a donation if that's your thing. If you're in the nonprofit world or in the corporate space where you can't sell your product or service. And so my proposition to you is start with that irresistible offer. Your audience in front of you, what do they want and what can you give to them? And that's the big takeaway. What do you think about that, D?
Oh man, I absolutely love that. That is so congruent with everything. In fact, I was talking with Russell literally last night. He's finishing up his next book called Expert Secrets. And we were talking about, some of the perfect webinar things. And I know this actually goes back to, I think, the time that he was spending with you. And it's really, even like on a webinar, everyone who's listening, if you're creating a webinar, one of the very first things we always teach is you start with the close. You have to come up with what's your close, what's your stack, how are you going to come up with that? Because oh my gosh, Dustin, everything you said, I hope people go back and rewind what you just said, because honestly, that is the most important part for any presentation, any VSL, even your elevator pitch. When you first meet somebody, you still have to start with that. So I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. And the thing is when we got started in this, just I don't know, whenever you write your first PowerPoint or your first sales letter, you always start at the beginning and no one really tells you, hey, what if you did it this way? And so that's the big thing is I say start with that irresistible offer and put it in front. And, most people that come to me say, Dustin, I've only got like 5 minutes to speak. What should I say? And I say, well, you definitely need an intro to grab people's attention. But when you're shortcutted on time and you're in front of the right crowd, you can just make an offer, you make an introduction, you can make an offer, and some amount of people, some percentage of people will take you up on that offer. Here's an example. You walk into McDonald's, right? You're hungry, right? You don't just walk into McDonald's because you're not hungry, right? So you're the right person, And the person at at the counter is a 16-year-old. Like, they have no sales experience, right? Even if McDonald's pays them up, there's no sales experience, and they're not even listening to, their trainer or their manager. So the thing is the offer is in front of you on the menu. And so literally, if you put the right person in front of the right offer, you can screw a lot of things up and you can get away with a lot of things. Obviously, we don't advocate that at Speaking Empire, and most certainly not in the ClickFunnels community. But that's the reality: is if you have a strong offer in front of the right people, you can get away with a lot. And so that's a big one. And I'm hitting it for that reason, because it's so big. So
no, I think that's fantastic. That's awesome.
Absolutely. So here's the next thing. And a lot of people miss this one. So we're working backwards. So I gave you intro, story, offer, body, close. We started with close. Now let's go backwards and work with body. So on the body, this is a big one. Whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you share with people, I want you to create a 3-step, a 5-step, a 7-step. It can be 6. It can be an odd number, but just create some proprietary method or number of steps to create success. So let's make it real. Let's say you're a chef, right? So there's 5 or 6 steps to creating the ultimate meal, right? Or the ultimate lasagna. Well, what are those steps? People love to hear concrete things like there's 5 things to create success in life, or there's 3 things that you can do to save for your retirement or be well off, right? And so a lot of people just throw information but you got to package it in the right way. You really have to sell people on your process or your methodology before you can actually sell them a product or service. And that's a big one.
That's awesome. It's so funny because people always say, well, gosh, I don't have a certain number. I'm like, well, then just create a certain number. No one knows that. So I love what you just said. You know what? Come up with some. I don't care if it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever the number's going to be. But in everybody's business, I think the problem for a lot of people is they're just too close to their own business. They don't realize that everything can be broken down into secrets or steps or formulas. I think that's awesome.
And so here's a funnel hack to use, or a speaking hack or an influence hack, if we want to call it that. I know we love hacking around here. So here's a hack. Once you come up with, and the thing isn't just to come up with like 7 steps. So what I would say is, let's say you're a personal trainer. What does it really take to become fit? And so teach me in 7 steps or 5, however many steps it takes, what it takes to get the end result, right? And so you may end up at 12, and ideally I like to go shorter, because would you rather have 5 steps to success or 12, right? 5. Sure. But if you end up at 12, I get it, but try to go shorter. And then I want you to name it. And even if you can't think of a name, I want you to call it, the Woodward method, or the Mathews formula, or the Brunson principle, and put a TM. So use your last name if you can't think of something, because a lot of people, Dave, I'm sure you get this. They ask, well, how can I be different? How can I stand out in my marketplace? Well, the way you stand out is by naming things and being known for processes and formulas. Like, think of the Atkins diet. Right? It's the Atkins diet. It's his name. It's a process. It's a formula for dieting or having a good life. And so a lot of people get stuck up on the name. And so the fact is, if you do get stuck there and you can't think of a benefit name, just call it your last name and call it a method or a formula. And so now you will always own that formula or method. And so that's a little hack there to really create difference in your own marketplace.
Oh, that's super cool. I like that a lot. That's awesome.
All right, good. Keep going.
Yeah, let's please. The people are loving this. I'm taking good notes here, so this is awesome.
All right, so working backwards, we're now at offer. And so my partner, Dave Van Hoos, he says they won't buy until you make them cry. Now, immediately when I say that, some people, they cringe a little bit, and they're like, what are we doing? Are we like pushing buttons? And the reality is most people don't realize how much of a pain it is. Like, if you think about it, people are numb in society, and they don't really know what it's like to be in their own existence. And what I mean by that is, think about if you had a job and now you're free, right? When you had that job, you probably had great security. You probably had certain things going for you, but you didn't realize you were missing out on freedom to be your own boss. You didn't realize that you were missing out being able to pick up and go to an event, being able to pick up and go with your spouse on vacation whenever you wanted. And so your challenge as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, speaker, whatever you want to call yourself, is you have to tell people about the problem they have, and then you've got to present the solution. And your solution actually happens in the last step, which is your Woodward method or whatever you're going to call it with the TM behind it.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, target the pain, offer the solution. So that one's pretty simple.
No, I think that's really cool. I think the idea as far as, I love Dave's little, quote there as far as they won't buy until you make them cry. I think as, emotional as people might think, but emotions are why people buy. You have to get them into an emotional state. And I think that's really a super cool idea. That's awesome. So let's talk more about this whole story idea.
Yeah, Dave, I just want to echo in there. It's a big one because I'm more of like your analytical guy. I want to sell with facts and figures and logic. And that does work for a percentage of the marketplace. You can do that, but you vastly leave out immense sales without making it emotional. And so that's a reminder for myself as well. And for a lot of people out there that say, people want to see facts and figures. Yes, that's an important component. They need to see proof, but you got to make it emotional. So you got to remember the emotion. So, all right, let's talk story. So part of that, which dovetails, is telling your story. There has to be some sort of story of transformation. And Dave, whenever I say this, I always get the look from people, and they kind of, they clue me into that Chris Farley, if you've ever seen that from SNL. I was living in a van down by the river, and I say, listen. Everyone wants to go to the immediate cheese example, as I like to say it. I say, listen, you don't have to be as cheesy as that. However, you shouldn't underestimate what's going on here. And so it's the power of transformation at cause. And so it may be your own personal transformation of living in a van down by the river and now you're on top of the world. It may be a transformation of how you used to do things a certain way. Like I'll tell you, I'm not patting your own back here, but I am, and it's ClickFunnels. Like to go and create HTML pages and hook up the Google Analytics to figure out the conversion. Like it took a team to do now what I can do, right? So the pain I had to buy all this software. I had to have all these people on beck and call on Skype and put stuff together. And now we can do this in-house with one person. I can do this now. And so that transformation is powerful. And so telling that story of how things used to be and then what your solution is and how you cracked the code and created this process is mission critical in any sales message.
Oh man, we could go on and on, probably have you on a different episode just about the story aspect, because I think there's such an art to story. And you guys are the masters at Speaking Empire of being able to really help people craft their story. But I think I know for us here at, as I've been working with Russell and we've been spending a lot of time on his Expert Secrets book and stuff that he's doing, a lot of what he's coming out with right now is focused around exactly what you just said, and that's the story. Whether it is, I was living in a van down by the river, or it was your transformation, or whatever it might be, that story is what people resonate with. I mean, Russell, it's so funny because we joke around all the time. Russell's like, I am so sick and tired of telling my wrestling story or my potato gun story. But that's what people know him by. And he's so passionate about it because wrestling is that's a part of him. And it's just kind of fun. We went to a wrestling match. My kids just started wrestling. And it was kind of fun having Russell take us down to Boise State where he wrestled. And again, it was all about the story. We met some of the people who he had wrestled with. One of the guys actually he had wrestled with, who was the heavyweight guy, was actually right down in front of him. And it was so funny because as soon as we met him, the very first thing Russell said, "Oh, Dave, I got to tell you a story." And it was a story about that guy. And so it's, to me, everything, people are captivated by stories. And you guys at Speaking Empire crush the story side. So I love it. So that's awesome.
Thanks, I appreciate it. And you're absolutely right. Everyone wants to short. Like if you do this quite a bit, if you do a number of webinars or VSLs or speak from the stage, it's the thing you get bored with the easiest and the first. But you can't shortcut it. So you got to be able to tell that story. And I think it's funny, Dave, because I don't know if you saw in the notes, but when we registered to take part on the podcast when we were scheduling it, one of the things you had there was what questions should we? Yeah, and I just
full Nelson or half Nelson.
You did see it, full Nelson or half Nelson, because I mean that's just so ingrained in me too. So story is critical. Story is absolutely critical. All right, so the last part, which is the first part, which is now your intro. So a lot of people have questions about this, like how do I do it? And there are no shortage of ways to do it. Classic thing that I actually learned from Russell was on a VSL, a pattern interrupt. So, what does this rubber chicken have to do with you making money? It's like, well, what the heck? Like, what? Like, it just like, that's a pattern interrupt. Like, you're not expecting a rubber chicken to even relate to making money. And so now it's curious. So you can do a pattern interrupt. A real simple way, if you're speaking on a webinar or better on stage, is to ask a question. So how many of you would like me to share with you, how to make money or build your next funnel? And so it eases you in. It immediately grabs someone's attention. One of my favorite ones, especially for my speaker experts out there, is using an intro video. And so I think when Russell spoke 5 times at a Dan Kennedy conference, which, by the way, Dave, I don't know if you know this, I actually took a picture of Russell in the crowd. He was right next to me, sitting right next to me, and he was so tired because he got to the conference and not every presentation was done. I don't know if he would say that, but I'll let you in on some inside baseball here. And so he was so tired, and so like during someone else's presentation, he's catching up on some Z. So I said, oh, this is an awesome opportunity. I take out my mobile phone, my iPhone, I take a picture of him, and I don't let him know about it. Then what I did was I went down to a Kinko's or some poster shop, and we made a poster that said Internet Marketer, Making Money While You Sleep, and a picture of him there passed out, catching up on some Z's, and I mailed that to him as a poster from that. And the reason why I tell you that story is that was the conference where he spoke 5 times, and I believe in his first talk, he opened with an intro video. And so if you are a speaker out there, never underestimate the power of having a video introduce you to immediately grab the attention.
That's absolutely awesome. And so I've got a million things going through my head. First of all, that picture actually is in our hallway here. So I see it every single day.
Yes.
Second of all, I hope as those of you guys who are listening, all of a sudden, we're going through this podcast and stuff, but I hope you just realize as soon as Dustin jumped into the story, everything just kind of settles in. You're like, I want to listen. I want to hear his story. And again, it was only a 2-minute story at best, but it's so captivating. And the third thing is this is totally random off topic, and that is the importance of building relationships. You guys are masters at that. And I can tell you, we have used that photo in in a lot of our sales presentations. We've used that photo in webinars. We've used it in a whole bunch of different places. But again, it just every time we do, we think of you guys. And so I think it's important as you guys are listening here. Again, we've known each other for a long time, good friends and all that kind of stuff. But still, it's those little tiny things that make such a huge difference in your relationship. And this podcast is kind of about influence and relationships anyways. I just want to make sure you guys understand. Have fun with it. Get excited. Again, the intro story, the whole offer, the body of the close. This is like, you guys, this secret formula is literally what can take you from not making any money to making literally 7 figures. I mean, your success stories at Speaking Empire are crazy, crazy success stories. So again, just thought I'd jump in there real quick. Again, love the picture, love having you here in our office.
Well, Dave, I love that, and I like to share because I think I grew up old school. And I grew up around Russell in terms of marketing education and that circle. And so I didn't realize it until you said it, like that's an old school strategy. I took that picture, but I sent it to him offline. And I know a lot of folks think, especially internet marketers, they like to think, oh, we're going to automate everything and we don't necessarily have to talk to people. We can do this one-to-many without any personal interaction. And you're right, it is the relationships and it's making a meaningful impact. And so taking that picture and mailing him a poster was, an offline sort of strategy that helps obviously online business take place, and create relationships. So never underestimate the offline. I love it big time.
Well, obviously we're known for the internet marketing piece, but literally the main thing we're talking about these days here at ClickFunnels is how do we take more people offline? Again, we could go on a whole other podcast on this, but just understand, people, usually every dollar that you make online, you can get $3 to $7 taking that person offline. So little plug there.
Well, speaking of that, let's talk about that. So one of our big favorites. So we covered the the influence formula, essentially what we practice and preach here at Speaking Empire and teach. And so now let's talk about going offline a little bit in terms of events. So I believe for most marketers or even small business owners, dentists, doctors, anyone that has an office location, you have the opportunity to do seminars. Now, when I say seminars, I'm not talking about, funnel hacking live like that, where there's thousands of people, although you can do that. That is a form of a seminar. But let's say you're the doctor who doesn't have, that sort of audience. Well, having a client appreciation sort of event, inviting people into your office where you have success stories on the wall, or you have a book of testimonials and letters from your patients there, is a huge opportunity. And I remember back to Russell and I were part of a mastermind, and Dave's really good at this, at influence. And so Russell and Dave got together, and Dave told Russell, let's do an event together. And so for a time there, I remember Russell saying this comment to me. He's like, Dustin, I've seen you more than I've seen my grandmother, and you live in Florida, and and I'm like, oh wow, and that was an uncommon thing, and so we were doing so many events together and part of so many things together, and so events are powerful because, like you said, Dave, you can create relationships. It's why, even though ClickFunnels is a software company, you guys do a big annual conference, you do live events to get people there. It's another form of media. And I believe most people miss out on that opportunity. And so let me give you the solution real quick. The solution to this is whenever somebody buys something, for those of you that don't want to do event marketing full time, you ought to consider including a ticket or a pass to a client appreciation event. So once a year or twice a year, if you want to get ambitious, quarterly. Anyone who buys from you at a certain price point or at any price point, you invite them to come to your office, because I guarantee you when you get them in your energy into your office to meet your team or just to meet you, it will dramatically change your relationship and your sales for that matter when that occurs. You agree, Dave?
Oh my gosh, you have no idea. And again, we're just going to have a series of you and I on a podcast here, because so both, for those of you guys who are listening, both Dustin and so Speaking Empire and ClickFunnels are both actually building their own businesses or buildings right now, physical buildings. So I know you guys are going through a big rehab and stuff. Yep. We're in the process right now. In fact, we should be finalizing our rehab hopefully by the end of January. We're actually have to be out of our office January 31st, so it has to be done by then. But it's interesting because one of the things we've actually built into our building, in fact, almost a third of the space is a big event center place where we can literally have people come in, whether it's for our inner circle or our certification programs, or whether we've got a brand new event that we're going to be rolling out at Funnel Hacking Live that we're talking about there, we're, again, bringing people in. But the interesting thing, Dustin, we've been toying around, we haven't quite pulled the trigger on yet. We're actually thinking about offering that space up for other gurus who have their own inner circles or their own masterminds to actually come to Boise to use the space for free, and then have, Russell or myself or other members of the team be able to come in and say a few words here and there. In addition to it, it kind of goes back to what you were just referencing, as far as it's a great thing to basically have, pictures or testimonial books. We're actually putting all over our walls will be a picture of all of our inner circle members, and then we're going to be rolling out our 2 Comma Club. Actually, I need to talk about that after the podcast. But the 2 Comma Club, as far as those people who have made over $1 million in a funnel, we're going to have their plaques up on all of our walls as well. And so it's a great place to showcase your success. But more importantly, like you said, you get someone in your office, guaranteed the dollar amounts that you're going to get from them. It's, I don't know what multiple you want to put on it, but it's going to go up for sure.
I'm with you. I think we should do a JV on the building thing, so that we are considering that idea too, renting out or giving the space to folks. So maybe there can be an East Campus and a West Campus.
I love it.
Yeah, so events are a big thing, and so you'll see even Google, or let me think of another example. Let me think of Warren Buffett, right? And so they've got all these companies, and Warren Buffett, for all the stockholders in his companies, holds an annual conference, right? And so it's quite a production if you've ever heard about it. If not, look into it. And so they sell a lot of chocolates and all the different things, all the different companies that are represented there. And so Microsoft, Google, Apple, right? They're all live events, even though they stream them. There's a live gathering. And I want to echo that to remind people. I know it pushes some out of their comfort zone because they love to do the online thing. But events, you don't have to be a slick salesperson. You don't have to understand influence. I think if you have the right product and the right message, I know you have the right product and right message, but you just give people the opportunity to interact and engage with you live, magical things happen. Magical things happen.
Oh, Dustin, I love it. Well, but honestly, you and I could literally spend days on this podcast, and I gotta bring it somewhat to a close here. But I wanted to make sure before we did, if there's any last words, and then you and I kind of talked beforehand about some experiences and stuff you've got going on that might be beneficial to our ClickFunnels users. So if you want to kind of wrap it all up and bring that together for us, I'd love it.
All right. I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity. We do 3 big events a year, and that actually may be coming shortly to 2 events a year. Less is more is the big thing we're learning here at the Empire. But nonetheless, we do an event so if you loved what you heard here and want to go further with it and meet some of the members of the Speaking Empire community, we do an event called the Amplify Experience. And it's our belief that everyone has a message inside. You may not know what that message is. That's okay. Because at Amplify, you understand what it is, you refine it and polish it, and then we show you how to amplify that message. And so if your message is to sell your product or service, great. Raise money for your charity. If you're a church leader, great. Really, at the end of the day, it's all about marketing and sales and influence. And so we teach that at Amplify Experience, which I would love all ClickFunnels members to be a part of, just to really take your skills to the next level and have every skill available to you. So that's at amplifyexperience.com. And if you like digital, cool blueprints and graphics and cheat sheets and checklists, my irresistible offer is if you'll come to speakingempire.com and you'll opt in right there on the front page to our list, we will send you speaking blueprints and tips and strategies for how to increase conversion. The last thing I want to work in here, Dave, I know we got to roll. One of my most favorite resources is actually Russell's 101 conversion hacking book that you can get for free if you pay shipping and handling, I think. In the back of that book, it talks about the power of trial closes and how it increased his conversion on a webinar big time by doing that. So make sure as well to check that out. That's on Russell's site. But it's such a powerful resource if you're into webinars and influence to check that out as well.
That's awesome. I'll put all those links into the show notes. In fact, Dustin, I will make sure that the link to the 108 secret or split test and everything else, I'll actually have your affiliate. I'll put your affiliate link there since you're the one who mentioned it. So
oh, you're the man.
They can click on that and have your affiliate link. But no, Dustin, it's awesome. I love spending time talking to you. Always great. I look forward to seeing you again real soon. Any other parting words before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I like to end with this. So whatever your goal is, it can be business related, health related, it can be relationship, that love of your life, right? Whatever your goal is, if you'll just take one small action a day. And what I mean by that is go watch a webinar, go read an article, call somebody on the phone, listen to a podcast. Just one small action towards your goal, whatever it is. If you chunk it out like that in 365 days, you'll take in 365 actions, and you'll absolutely be amazed at where you end up if you just chunk it out.
Can't say anything more than that, bud. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast. If you'd like to be notified anytime we release a new episode, just subscribe over at funnelhackerradio.com. In addition to that, we'd love to send you a free gift. You can find that free gift at funnelhackerradio.com/free trial. One last thing is we love giving away cars. So if you'd like access to a free dream car, all you have to do is go to funnelhackerradio.com/dream car and you'll get all the details. Thanks again for listening.